Okay, welcome everyone to Bonfire 2. Tonight we're going to be talking about designing the future, which means what human flourishing could look like by the year 2030. I am super excited to be joined tonight by one of our awesome CU team members, Chabu. Chabu, before we get started, could you just tell the fellows that are here tonight a little bit about how you got to CU?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, hello, everyone. Very glad that you could all join us, whether you're watching the recording or you're here live. My name is Chabu. I am 20 and have just recently moved to New York to work for CU full-time on a gap year. I got into CU the same exact way you guys got into CU. I applied for the founding fellowship, got accepted, did the fellowship, had the most amazing time, and just stayed connected and plugged in. And from then on, just participating and contributing to the community led to this opportunity popping up. And so I go to the University of Toronto, but decided to take the year off to focus in on all the amazing stuff we do here at CU. And I am so excited to be here. I am just a Slack or email away if you ever want to talk anything related to CU, gap year, etc. But my goal is to meet as many of you as I can over the course of this fellowship. So awesome to meet you all.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, if you're watching tonight and you don't know already, there are actually quite a few CU team members that started as fellows and are now doing amazing work with us, and you're going to get to know them over the course of the fellowship. So with that, let's get started. We're going to start with an announcement tonight. And then we're going to get to the lesson. So some of you might have heard of this concept of Juntos. If you had read the white paper explaining the fellowship, you might have read a little bit about Juntos already. But here are the basics, what you need to know. Next week will be the start of Juntos. What is a Junto? It is an optional, and I'm going to repeat that, optional. This is not a requirement of the fellowship. These are optional small discussion groups that are led by a CU community member that allows you to discuss whatever is meaningful to you and your Junto members every week. So you could discuss what's going on in the bonfires. You could discuss the recommendation of the week. You could discuss the leadership blueprint and that week's quest. Or you could just talk about what's going on in your lives, whatever feels meaningful to you and your Junto. And that CU team member that's in there will be facilitating the conversation. I think they're a great way to meet new people and develop lasting bonds with other fellows. We still have some Juntos that are going on from previous fellowships. I'm going to send out the link to sign up for Juntos later tonight in my recap email, and then it's also here in these slides when I share the slides. One thing to keep in mind, excuse me, is that you should only sign up for a Junto if you can commit to attending all 8 sessions over the next 8 weeks. One thing that really hurts a Junto is when members don't show up. I know things happen, people get sick, things just pop up in our lives. And it would be okay if you missed one due to those circumstances, but I really, really want you to try committing to all 8 of these Juntos if you're going to sign up. If you don't think you're going to be able to do that, no problem at all. These are optional, not required. And so just don't sign up if you don't think you can commit to those 8 weeks. The deadline to sign up is Wednesday at midnight Pacific time. It's a super easy form. It'll just take you 2 minutes to fill it out. So it's not an application or anything like that. If you have questions about Juntos, we'll answer them at the end of tonight's bonfire.
All right, everyone. So we have gotten to our first rapid response round. And the question is, what is the most well-designed thing you have ever experienced? So it could be a product, a piece of art, a video game, a class, an app, something that you just use and you're like, wow, this was like perfectly put together. And you can go ahead and put your ideas in the Slack.
Honda CRV, a car.
I mean, it's probably like the most common car. So you must be onto something, Sarah.
The toilet, yeah, Jay, you're right. Before that, you mentioned a toilet, just outhouses. That wasn't very civilized. We had to evolve.
Someone said Notion, and yes, 110%, most definitely. CU runs on Notion, which you guys already know. Human beings, that's actually a really good point. Like everything has a purpose. We're really complex systems and almost everything's automated. Disneyland, iPhones. Yes, yes, yes. I think a new one just came out. Grand Theft Auto was put in the chat. I'm not a player, but I trust you.
Ooh,
VR.
I saw piano too. I didn't even think of that. Think about all that went into creating a piano and all the amazing music that it has enabled. Wow.
Especially since like the design of a piano hasn't really changed over the past couple hundred years. So very well done.
Ooh, Legend of Zelda, robots. Oh, chess is another one too. Chess seems like to me essentially a perfect game with infinite combinations that's lasted hundreds of years. That's a pretty cool one.
I'm also seeing Google Drive, AP classes. Love to hear more about that. Might have some competing perspectives on that. Different kinds of robots, the actual idea of a book, so just like paper, words.
Human body, right? We don't have to think about breathing. How cool is that? That's pretty well designed.
Zoom. I don't know what the past year would have looked like in the absence of Zoom, so have to agree with you on that one. The alphabet. Yes, I think building a language is like the most complicated thing ever.
True.
I keep seeing music theory, which I don't know too much about, but would love to hear more.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that either. I am definitely not musically inclined, and so I'd love to hear more about that.
All right, I think we're coming up on 2 minutes.
Yeah, and yeah, mathematics too. It's another one. Like it just seems it just works, right? And we don't know why for a lot of things.
Oh, and there's infinite possibilities with that one too.
Yeah.
All right, so diving into today's agenda and what we'll be up to, we're going to talk about 3 inspiring and incredibly well-designed accelerators of human flourishing, and then following that up by designing our own future. And then, of course, we always do a Q&A session at the end, so you can save all your questions for the end and then drop them in the Zoom when the time comes. And then we'll do a breakout hangout and go from there.
Okay, so we mentioned this phrase already, human flourishing accelerator. But what does that mean? What's an accelerator of human flourishing? And you might think this is a tautology, or the definition here is kind of a cop out, but it's something that increases human flourishing. That's all it's doing. And so I think it helps to have some examples. An accelerator of human flourishing could be people. Could be friends or family who help you flourish. It could be ideas and frameworks. We hope that the ideas that we present here are going to help accelerate human flourishing. It could be sports and recreation centers, right? It is very, very helpful to have to be doing some athletic activity to accelerate your own flourishing. Parks and nature. There's a reason that in the middle of Manhattan is a massive park, right? That could just be all buildings and concrete, but there's a reason that we have that park. There's a reason that we have national parks here. And in other countries, that the wilderness and parks are very valued, roads and more. So an accelerator of human flourishing can really be anything, but it doesn't happen by accident. They need to be intentionally designed, right? Someone had to design Central Park to work the way that it does. And we need to intentionally design the conditions that allow a human system to flourish. And when measuring the impact of an accelerator, when deciding how impactful it is, we also want to think about the second and third order effects as well, not just the direct effects. And we'll explain a little bit more about what that means. We're going to talk about 3 examples tonight of human flourishing, of accelerators of human flourishing. And these are very, very different examples, right? One is a country, the country of Norway. One is a school in Germany, in Berlin. And one is a social movement, an organization called Effective Altruism. So we're going to dive into these a little bit more in depth as examples of accelerators of human flourishing. As we go through these, you can feel free to comment in the Slack if you've heard of these before, You can start typing your own kind of pros and cons that you see as we talk through these. First one, Norway, country of Norway. Well, what makes that special? It is consistently ranked as the world's best democracy. Entire world, The Economist has ranked Norway #1 almost every year. And some of the reasons why are that the design of their political system. First, Norwegians are automatically registered to vote. That's something that does not happen in the United States. And in Norway, they generally see 80% or more turnout in elections. Again, US used to hover around 50%. It's gone up in the last few elections, closer to 60, almost 70%, which are good signs, I guess, for democracy, but do not get to the level that Norway is at. Their political system also is full of political parties, 8 political parties vying for power. If you listen to a lot of political reformers in the US, they argue that this is much better. It would do away with these 2-party stalemates that we see. Third, the politicians in Norway are true public servants. They don't make much money. They can't make much money. They can't accept tons of money from lobbyists, and their salaries are not that high. And so they're not doing it to enrich themselves. They're doing it for the public good. Now, the caveat here is that Norway is also a much smaller, homogenous nation that is not without its own problems. They've had their own issues with white supremacist terrorism there. So Norway is very, very different from many of the countries that you live in. So we can't just hold it up and say we should all be like Norway. This is just one example of a country that's doing something right to accelerate human flourishing. And if you're interested in more about Norway, I linked an article here that you can read.
So a really cool example that I'm also just learning about is ESBC. And so this is actually a school that has radical trust in students and their potential. And students have what must be like ultimate control over their learning journeys. So there are no teachers, only coaches and guides, which is actually kind of similar to how we do things here at CU. And students get the chance to teach each other and have one-on-one weekly syncs with their teachers or coaches just to track their progress. So all the learning is done autonomously and also self-paced. The way that grades are organized is not by age, but by skill set. But when you start grade 9, which is like sophomore year equivalent, freshman year equivalent, that is when you start getting letter grades. So nothing before that. And all of the curriculum is actually founded on the Sustainable Development Goals. So they deal with real world projects from the beginning. And a really cool feature that I would have loved to have is this thing called experiential courses. So topics like responsibility or challenge would be the focus. And students have the chance to receive a little bit of funding to plan cool experiences for themselves, like self-meditation retreats, working on a farm, trekking along the coast. So tons of cool stuff. I would definitely recommend checking out the article that's linked here when you get the Bonfire slides later tonight.
Okay, third example of an accelerator is the organization Effective Altruism. But what makes them special? They are a philosophy and social movement of using reason and evidence to determine the most effective ways to do good. If any of you have studied the Enlightenment or the scientific revolution, then you know that this is not a new approach, right? Using reason and evidence to determine the most effective ways to do something. They're just trying to apply it to modern life. And what they've done, this organization, is collect other organizations and concepts. And what they've done is help people first choose careers with high potential for social impact. So if you're looking to do good, they are an organization that can help you figure that out. They have identified and directed donations to what they have deemed as the most effective charities. And again, how do they do that? They're trying to use reason and evidence to find those charities. Some examples are GiveWell and Animal Charity. And finally, they have found a way to donate more to effective charities. They have 5,000 members who have pledged to give at least 10% of their lifetime income to effective charities. And so that means they have secured over $200 million already and more than $2 billion pledged to these effective altruism organizations. So pretty cool organization. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls of this in a second. But those are the good things about effective altruism as an accelerator. And there is a link right here if you want to read more about them. So some final thoughts on these accelerators that we talked with you about tonight. They're not perfect, right? That's one of the things that we're trying to do at CU is constantly refine ourselves. And even these three examples, they would admit that they're not perfect. So these accelerators can also be impediments. For example, effective altruism. Many of the members of effective altruism, they make money to donate to them, but they do it by perpetuating broken systems, right? Let's say you're a member of EA, but you might work at ExxonMobil or something. You're perpetuating problems with climate change. It's, you know, people are complex, obviously, and they might have many reasons for doing that, but it is not necessarily the most effective way to go about things. And it's why intentional design is so key here. Second, it isn't always realistic to create a new paradigm, to create this new human flourishing accelerator. As you design accelerators, if many of you try to do that, you want to be creative sometimes within a framework to make impact. So for example, the school we mentioned, ESBC, they still acknowledge that after 9th grade, they need grades. They're not completely changing education. They're working within that framework to do the best they can. And then third, while these are significant examples, accelerators happen at all scales of human systems and in all sectors. So it doesn't have to be just some massive organization or even a country on that scale. It can be at a much smaller scale. So an accelerator could just be your teacher. It could be the local park that you go to, that you and your friends go to relax, unwind, and then eventually get work done. It could be something like an app on your phone like Headspace, or it could be just you.
All right, so we have a second round of rapid response questions. What examples of human flourishing accelerators did we miss that you think should be included? So if you've experienced an accelerator, and remember, this could essentially be anything that perpetuates more good, what are some ideas that come to mind? And of course, drop your answers in the chat. Libraries, I totally agree. Like, all the knowledge, fully accessible, essentially free, and publicly funded. Libraries are an amazing resource. I'm a library lover myself. The internet, yes. It kind of goes in multiple directions. It can be all the good and a lot of bad, which kind of speaks to something we'll touch on later about like the second and third degree impacts of some of the things that are being put together.
I saw Y Combinator in there. That's a good example. Oh, I saw Khan Academy there as well. Love Khan Academy.
Art, yes, it's both expression, but also just fun and interesting, and a really great time capsule for things that have been happening in the past or how people feel about things. Skillshare, that is also very cool. The fact that you can just like knowledge share and learn things online at your own pace. And for the most part, for free.
Of course, I see a couple people with Coursera. That's another good one. See you. Thank you for that one.
Also, TED Talks. So much insight embedded in what must be like 10 to 15 minutes, and you get to hear about like someone's entire life's work.
Hello World, nice. Shout out to our partners at Hello World.
Inspiring teachers. I have said this before and I'll say it again, teachers are probably like the most important people out there. What they do is absolutely wild. Much appreciation to teachers always. Someone said Spotify. I'm very biased. I fully agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I tend to agree too. So many people rely on music to get work done or even to just unwind and get through the day. That's super important.
Someone said LinkedIn. And I think that there's merit to that too. Like connecting with other people that are doing great work can be a very useful tool.
Yeah, our own Gary Shang is all over LinkedIn. He would definitely argue that that's accelerating his flourishing.
He's a bit of a LinkedIn influencer, if
Yeah.
you will.
Habitat for Humanity. Yeah, these are all great.
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you for all your examples.
So let's transition to a bigger question. And I know it seems like we've been posing some big questions already, but this is a big one. It's, what would you do if you could design an accelerator from scratch? And don't answer it yet, though. Just kind of have that in the back of your head as we go through this. You're gonna get your chance to answer in a few minutes. I first want you to imagine a scenario, and I think this will help when we're planning and designing our own accelerators. So suppose a well-educated person, so like any of you, in the early 1900s, so 120 years ago, sat down to write a book predicting what life would look like now in the 2000s. What do you think they would predict? Well, this person surely would miss a lot of things, right? There's no way they would believe that there were horseless carriages traveling at 70 miles per hour, which of course are cars. No way they would predict that there was a flying machine capable of carrying people faster than the speed of sound, right? Those are planes. Would have no conception of pocket devices that transmitted photos and sounds instantly. They would be freaked out if they saw a phone, right? A cell phone. Had no conception that there would be war devices capable of destroying all life on Earth. That's nuclear weapons. No conception of the ability to travel to the moon and Mars, right? That would blow their minds that we were at the moon and Mars. And now you can make this list that goes on forever. So you're probably wondering, like, well, what's Nick getting here? Well, what's the point of this? Well, now imagine you're in the same scenario. Right now, in 2021, someone asks you to predict what life would be like in the year 2100. Would you be any better at predicting the future? Are we any more flexible or farsighted today than we were in 1900? I'd argue probably not. And so in order to design the future, we must first become open to what is possible and become an expert in changing our minds when new evidence is presented to us. So think about this. The differences between the year 1900 and 2000 will probably be very, very small compared to the differences between 2000 and 2100. How will we account for this in thinking about the future? And so just for fun, right now, and this is not going to be a full 2-minute question, just for 30 seconds, you can put one thing in the chat. What do you think 2100 will look like? What are your predictions? You could do it for technology, government, the environment, etc. Just want to see a couple of your predictions for what 2100 will look like. Yeah, I see someone mentioning climate change. It could very well be very, very tough. Flying cars. Yeah, people have been predicting flying cars since the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I think they're starting to come around more. They're more like kind of helicopters, I guess.
The idea that we could live on Mars, that might be a pathway we're exploring sooner rather than later. Time travel, that'd be very, very interesting to see take place, but it's possible. Robot doctors, I feel like we could see that in the next, like, even 50 years, like within our lifetimes for sure.
Definitely.
Hologram food. No, I that would actually be really useful. I'd be interested to see how that plays out.
AI will take over. Yeah, these are all cool predictions. But like I said, we really don't know, and we're just as bad at this as the person in the early 1900s. So let's go back to that first question, Chabu, that I posed.
All right, so take a minute to think. So back to like the first question Nick asked, if you could start your own accelerator from scratch, so new idea, new concept, what would you start with and why? So what would your first steps look like? Forming a government, creating a new philosophy or ethical framework, building more public spaces, so something physical, writing a book, starting an underclassmen mentorship program. What can you build that would perpetuate more good, essentially?
And there's no idea that's too big or too small here.
I don't know is a perfectly valid answer. That's why you're here at CU.
Yeah.
Ooh, a pro bono law firm.
Cool. Well, resolving the differences between socialism and capitalism.
It'd be very cool to see buildings that all have like garden walls attached to them, especially in a city, to add ecosystems. So educating more people about sustainability and flourishing, that is definitely an accelerator. Just having the language to describe the things we want is key. Building more environmental spaces so people have an appreciation for the environment. Ooh, a space dedicated to uplifting opportunities so they're more accessible, so people know about them. Ooh, so reshaping the international entertainment industry. So we have a healthy and more productive, but still engaging content. Eliminating misinformation.
A remote first world learning community for all ages and with spaces for international collaboration. Yeah, very noble goal.
And some of these don't even require like establishing new paradigms. So just writing a book can be really inspiring.
Right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of these responses. So how do we do this? How do we go about designing these accelerators? How do we design this future when it's so uncertain? There's no easy answer to this, but I propose we start by borrowing from the work of a future design thinker by the name of Jacques Fresco, who wrote a book that was appropriately titled Designing the Future. This book is also going to be the recommendation of the week. We're not going to be able to cover the whole thing. It's pretty long. But I encourage you to read some of it, at least the intro. And I think you'll recognize some of the stuff that I talked about tonight if you read the intro. I'm going to share the link to it after tonight's session. And so why am I recommending this book? It's not the definitive text on design thinking. There's lots of other great stuff out there, but it does a really nice job explaining the challenges for designing the future in a plain, non-technical way. So you don't have to be an engineer or a computer scientist or anything like that to understand what's going on in this book. It also poses fascinating questions about design choices that we kind of take for granted in our society. And so here's one that I want to pose to you about design. So in the year 2019, roughly 40,000 people in the US died in car accidents, with hundreds of thousands more injured in them. That's a lot of people in car accidents. Now, were all of these car accidents the fault of the drivers alone? Probably not. It was more likely probably the design of the cars, roads, traffic patterns, etc. And so I want you to compare that number, 40,000 people died, hundreds of thousands more injured, to elevators. Elevators, much, much safer, right? They're another mode of transportation. They move people, right? They don't move them in the same ways, obviously, but they still move people, and they do it almost every day with no accidents. Very, 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 very few. So my question for you is, and what I would want you to think about when designing something is, why is it acceptable that so many people die in car accidents? Why is that okay in our society, but not in elevators? Why is that? Well, if you think that cars could and should be as safe as elevators, then this book is for you. And I think you'll get a lot out of it if you give it a chance. Now, what does that have to do with human accelerators, though? Well, human accelerators, human flourishing accelerators need to be designed and built for the future too. We can't be designing something for the past. And so Bonfire 1, what we did last week, confirmed that impediments to human flourishing exist in many places around the world and need radical rethinking. We have looked at some inspiring examples tonight, like in Norway, like the school, ESBC, movements like effective altruism. But we need more of these solutions at different scales of systems and in different sectors. And that's where you come in as CU fellows. We're counting on you eventually, you don't have to do this right now, so no pressure, to be the ones that are designing these human flourishing accelerators in the future. And humanity kind of depends on people like you to be doing this kind of work. The upcoming units that we're going to have on personal development, which will start next week, and then on systems thinking, will give you the tools to create accelerators that humanity needs and hopefully become an accelerator yourself. And so that is tonight's lesson.
Yes. And now on to the leadership blueprint activity that you all get to engage with this week. It is a passions quest. So you'll be identifying the things that you love and want to spend more time doing. So it will help you determine where you will be happiest and most productive as you choose a place to bring your immense talents to. Remember, these quests aren't for grade. It is fully an activity just for you and for self-reflection. So enjoy it, have fun. And if you have any, and in coming weeks, when you join a Junto, should you choose to, you'll also be able to talk about these weekly quests with your group.
So the recommendation is the Designing the Future book. I'm going to send the link out to it tonight, but it's also here. One other big announcement tonight, we obviously talked about Juntos at the beginning, but this one's just as important. It's that nominations are now open for our next fellowship in the spring of 2022. And so you actually have the ability to decide who's going to be in the next fellowship class, because you have the ability to nominate fellows. Really cool perk. And if each of you nominate one or two people and they happen to apply, you'll essentially do all of the recruitment for CU. And I'm going to email you this link tonight. And I'm hoping many of you participate by nominating friends, classmates, whoever you think might be a good fit for the fellowship and who is obviously in high school. We're going to have prizes for those who submit the most nominations. And so you want to make sure you use this link that I'm going to send tonight because we're going to be able to track it through this link. And if you have questions about that, you can put it in the chat because we are going to do Q&A for the next 10 minutes.
Yes, so drop all your questions about anything that we talked about today, whether it was Juntos, the ability to nominate someone, or the content. The Q&A section is now open. So Charlotte asked, when are the Juntos? So they will happen on a weekly basis, but the actual day of the week and the time will be determined by your group. And so we'll try to do our best to figure out and align different time zones, but the answers will vary depending on your Junto.
Yeah, and the form that I'm going to send out tonight, it's going to ask for your preferences, like day of the week, time of day, and we'll do our best to accommodate that. We can't guarantee that we can give you your first choice, but we'll try our best.
So, will we be having breakout rooms today? Yes, we will. Daryl will be dropping the link right after this, and you guys can go ahead. We'll be having them at the end of every bonfire session, which is cool. So I can't see. Sorry, just looking through these questions. Do you think people of Norway do human service or political action are better than those in the United States? So are the social activists of Norway, I guess, better at that role than those in the US? Love to hear your thoughts on this one, Nick.
I wouldn't necessarily say they're better. I would say that they do good work in both the US and in Norway and in other countries. I think Norway just has a little bit of leg up in terms of the structure of their democracy. But a lot of that is due to its smaller size. I think it's much tougher to run a modern democracy with a very diverse group of 330 million people versus a very homogenous group that kind of thinks very similarly, has similar interests of maybe 8 to 10 million people, like in Norway. So I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. It's just the way that their system is set up.
Right. Another great question that was asked is, how can we join a civic gym? We will actually be talking about that next week. So all the answers to those questions related to Civic Gym will be happening next week. How many hours and on which days will Juntos take place during the week? So I think the length is about 45 minutes, but again, Juntos are your spaces to kind of do what you want and explore with your group. So making that longer or shorter is a decision that you guys can all make collectively when the time comes. Someone asked the question if the prizes go to the most nominations or the most nominations that signed up. I think we're just sticking to nominations, but it's really great to, again, forward the link to people who you think would really enjoy the space. If you've had a good time at CU so far and want to bring your friends into the space, nomination applications is a great way to do that.
Yes, and we want you to be honest about this too. And it's kind of the honor system. We want you to be nominating people who you think actually might apply, and not just nominating someone who's not a real person or who is not likely to apply.
Someone asked a really great question. What's the difference between a Junto and the breakout hangout? So breakout hangouts, very casual thing that happens at the end of bonfires just for fun. But then a Junto is like a dedicated cohort. So you're going to see these people reoccurringly. Obviously, you'll talk about like bonfire content, but then also anything and everything. I am actually still a part of a Junto. We meet a little bit less often, but we talk about anything from school to life to like political issues that are happening now. So Juntos are a bit more structured and focused, and you really just like get a small niche community of your own within CU. Someone asked if they can get a letter of recommendation at the end of the program.
Yeah, so we actually we'll send out a letter that says that you've completed the fellowship, the number of service hours that amounts to, and then if you're looking for something additional, then yeah, just ask one of the CU staff members at the end of the fellowship, and we'd be happy to do that.
Yes. All right, someone asked if completing quests is necessary and how to complete them. So how to complete them, the link will be sent out at the end of this bonfire. So you just go into Notion, duplicate the page and answer the questions as you wish. Is it necessary? No one is required to do the quests, but it is so encouraged. Leadership blueprints have been a part of CU since the absolute beginning. I had a leadership blueprint. I'm actually trying to redo my leadership blueprint this year too. And there's just so much that you can discover about yourself and learn. And it's better to keep up with the pace that's been set, so on a week-to-week basis. But you also have the freedom to do it slowly, quickly, however, whatever time that you can spare for the activity. This is a great question. In your opinion, what aspects of the Berlin School could U.S. education adopt to help students contribute to society and encourage students further?
So I tend to agree with the no grades before ninth grade. I don't think it's necessary to be evaluating elementary school kids or middle school kids, or even kind of segregating them into like high achievers and like low achievers at that level. I think it's more about like a shared learning experience and meeting kids where they are and challenging them and not worrying about grades. It's kind of just perpetuates a system where they're doing that work for grades and not developing a love of learning, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing that you can do in a school. Also love kind of the one-to-one mentoring aspects, having older students helping younger students and mentoring them, giving them opportunities to teach even before they leave high school. So all those things I really like about the school.
And a component that I think was really cool and also kind of easy to implement is the idea of making the focus of course curriculum around SDGs or like public facing issues. You have to read something, so might as well read something about things that are actually taking place in the world and that are super relevant and current. I went to a high school that did a lot of that, and it was very cool because I got to spend time learning about the world without having to like draw away from school in any way. Someone asked if nominations are only open to U.S. citizens. No, the application is open to everyone and anyone. See, the curriculum in CU is English-based, so that's something to take into consideration. But we are an international cohort, so invite everyone that you can.
Some quick logistical ones about Juntos and quests. So in my email tonight, you'll see a link to sign up for the Junto. You'll also see a link for the quest in those emails tonight. So that's where these emails that I send on Monday night are kind of a good recap of the entire week. They'll have the recording in there. All the documents you need will be in that email, so look out for that. I also will post it in the announcements channel on Slack. So 2 places you can get that stuff.
Another more logistical question. Someone asked if we can host breakout sessions during another time of the day. Breakout sessions are more designed for like end of Bonfire, but we do have like events that take place in the evening and on the weekends and throughout different times. And they're also just like fun, casual events to participate in. So stay tuned in the CU newsletter that goes out, as well as like the announcements channel to hear about those events too. They're kind of like the breakout hangouts, but usually there's an activity involved as well.
And this question about nominations, yes, people do know that you nominate them. You have to put in their email so we can send them the nomination, and that way they can apply to the fellowship so that they will know. And then this question about what to describe CU in the Common App. If you want the main goals, objectives, etc., just email me and I can send you a copy of the white paper where you can get all of that information.
The question was asked if you guys can create channels to discuss subjects that you're really interested in. I'm not sure if channel creating is a feature that is in this channel quite yet.
Yeah, that's something you're gonna have to run by Darielle in Slack if we're gonna be creating any new channels. I think you would really need to find like a critical mass of fellows to justify creating a new channel. But I think it's possible. I just don't want to step on Darielle's toes there.
But you can also Slack him and he'll answer those questions for you.
Yeah. All right, it's 8:15. We're going to wrap up. Sorry if we didn't get to all of the questions. These were really, really good. I will be back next week. Chabu, you will be back later on in the fellowship for another bonfire, but thank you so much for joining us tonight.
No, so happy to be here. It was very cool to meet you all via Slack. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, evening, depending on where you are.
Wherever you are in the world. We'll see you soon.